This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Things are starting to get interesting. We have a little bit of concern with Stafford's finger. If I could say one thing before we get into the show, it's simple. All the scenarios, all of the rooting guys and things we want to happen to this team, for other NFC teams, it's simple. Lions, please just keep winning.
Daydream, I fell asleep amid the flowers for a couple of hours on a beautiful day. Daydream, I dream.
You're listening to the Hindsight 20 podcast. I'm your host, Jerry Mallory. I want to thank each and every one of you for listening. Hey guys, it was a division game. Okay. Let's just start off by saying that when we're thinking about Lions versus Bears, especially after that New Orleans game, which looked like, the most complete game we've had this year against a superior team than, the lowly Bears at the Superdome. Everything just said the Lions are official. The Lions are serious. So you have a game like this where you narrowly escape, barely beating the lowly, paltry 3-9 Chicago Bears, who are now 3-10. You start to worry. You start to say, man, maybe this team is not as good as we thought. Maybe this, maybe that. And sure, I'm not pleased with it. I don't like what happened. I don't like the fact that, especially Stafford, with the potential injury, but we'll talk about that in a second. But ultimately, what I want to talk about though is the fact that it's a division game. Okay. You look no further than your Sunday night matchup with with the Dallas Cowboys and with the New York G-Men, the Giants. Very close contested game. That's kind of the way division games go. I think John Fox has done a good job every game we've played them. I don't remember 2015, the last game. I don't know how close that one was, but earlier that year at Ford Field, I remember being there. That game went to the last second, to overtime there. And so all the games pretty much have been close. And that's what you're going to get with division games. So let's just start off when we're talking about this game. And, we worry because, hey, this should be a laugher. This is the Bears. They're this, they're that. It's a division game. And so it's going to be closer than normal. Good teams struggle against lesser teams when it's in the division. When you see them twice a year, you coach and you scheme and you do everything pretty much revolving around, that matchup, those opponents, those three teams you face. You focus on them more than any other scenario. And this is why you'll see like the LA Rams, formerly St. Louis. They will routinely beat the Seattle Seahawks who have won a Super Bowl, who have been to Super Bowls, who are perennial in the playoffs. They'll lose to a Los Angeles / St. Louis team that's 500 or below routinely because it's in the division. You look at the Buffalo Bills, they've been okay here and there, but nothing to write home about. They'll get victories over the New England Patriots, your 4-time Super Bowl champion in the last however many years, perennial playoffs, division, Brady, Belichick, Gronk, you name it. They'll lose to the Jets and they'll lose to the Bills. It's a division matchup. Division matchups are weird. They're going to be close. And if you're expecting it to be a blowout, if you're expecting, your talent to just, if you look at records and everything just to be so much better, it doesn't often happen that way. So I'm just throwing that out of the window. I've got plenty of other concerns, okay? I've got plenty of things I'm worried about. The fact that we played the Bears close, that's not a concern of mine. That's NFL football. Number one, I don't make excuses for losses or other wins. I always say that no matter who you play, I'm not making an excuse for a win. A win is a win is a win. And we know how bad we need them. We know how close everything is. We know what's at stake. We're at number 2 right now, which is great. We can even be the number 1 seed. At the same time, we might not make the playoffs. We're going to talk about all of that. So every win is important. I'm making no excuses for wins, okay? We found a way to win that game, so kudos to the team. I do have worries, though. I have plenty of them. You've got the Green Bay Packers. Yes, the last 3 teams they faced them at good times, okay? You've got Philly, who's kind of slumping. Houston, I mean, it was a blizzard. It was such a cold and horrible weather game. A team that struggles on the road anyway. They're much stronger there in Houston. And then you got Seattle, who has also struggled on the road. Then you take away, in my opinion, their best defender. They've got a lot of key members, but I feel like Earl Thomas is number one. And so they had a lot going on as well. That offensive line is horrible. But I do worry about the Packers. Those are still 3 wins in a row. And so now they've got the Bears, they've got Minnesota, and they've got us. They've already proven they can beat us, and we know how division games can go. That being said, the Chicago Bears could very well beat them. But yeah, Green Bay is one of my worries. Not the fact that it was a close game against Chicago. Matthew Stafford's finger, it has to be a worry, right? I mean, the reports are going back and forth. Is it a ligament? Is it this? Is it that? All I know is without Stafford, we have no chance. Absolutely no chance whatsoever. And so we need him. We need him to be healthy. I mean, we've got so much going on, so much potential. I really do feel like the NFC is wide open, but we have to have a healthy Stafford for it to be a chance, for it to happen. And so number 9, who's as tough as nails, who's always ready to go, who's a gamer, who's an MVP candidate. I mean, 100%, that's asking a lot of anybody. You know, at this stage of the season, Aaron Rodgers is gimpy. You know, everyone's gimpy, but we need him as healthy as possible. He's the one guy we cannot afford to lose. Let's listen to Matt Stafford, post game. We'll just do a few minutes, not the whole thing, talking about the season, the game, the finger, everything, you name it. We're really concerned with his middle finger. It's not an obscene gesture. It's not him going Stone Cold Steve Austin and flicking someone off. It's the middle finger that we need that can take us, hopefully, to great heights this season. Let's listen to Stafford.
I don't know. You know, I just try to play through it, play as good as I could, let those guys know that they may not be pretty coming in there, but those guys made some great plays for me. Obviously, didn't play as well as I can. You know, those 2 turnovers hurt us, but our defense played great, and then we were able to put together a drive late to go win it.
Did it show your grip, your velocity?
Does there see all of the above? A lot of white jerseys. Was able to get in. You know, we were just had to get a score there, and you know, they covered us up pretty good initially. I don't know who I felt like I leaned back and took off to run, and was trying to find somebody to throw to, and then once I decided to run, I was getting in. So.
Is there something more emotional about running in the end zone, kind of weaving through traffic like that? I know you had the big one against Dallas, a little different, but just getting in yourself. Yeah, I mean, I don't care how I get in. You know, if we throw it, somebody else runs it, I run it, doesn't matter to me. I just knew we needed a play. We needed a touchdown. You know, had it made up in my mind once I started running, I wasn't going to be denied. So it was a good play, but there were a bunch of other really good plays in that game that helped us win.
On the run, could you estimate how many bodies you bounced off of? Like, could you literally, it looked like you were pinballing.
Yeah, I don't know. I just was trying to stay on my feet and find that goal line, and it worked.
You say you're fiddling with the glove quite a bit.
Yep.
Can you just explain what was going on there exactly, how many changes you had to go through?
Yeah, you know, just not expecting to go into a game to have to wear a glove, and needed to, and was just trying to figure out what was the best way to manage it. And you know, the training room guys, equipment staff, everybody did a great job. Got me all ready to go, and then, you know, I just haven't thrown with one in a long time, so it was just trying to get the feel back was a little difficult.
When you make a come off a pick six, and the game is where it is in the fourth quarter, what do you have to do mentally, you know, to either keep yourself in control or get extra fired up on the ensuing drive? You go right back out there again. Yeah, you know, I played this position for a long time, and I've had really good plays. I've had really bad plays in tough situations, and that was a bad play. And doesn't matter if they're good or bad, you got to flush them and move on. You know, they teach you that in quarterback 101, and it's something that really pays off. You just got to.
Guys, let's not for 1 second neglect, look over, or take for granted what Matthew Stafford and what this team as a whole has done so far, okay? We've got 8 wins that resulted in fourth quarter comebacks, 9 wins total. This is nothing short of a history-breaking, history-making year. Every single week, we're finding a way. You would have to think just from due theory alone, and I subscribe to that. You know, when someone's good at something, they can only go to the well so many times, okay? I don't care if it's Reggie Miller at the free throw line, shooting a three-pointer, Kobe Bryant at the last second, Michael Jordan. You do something so many times, you're not going to make every game winner. You're not going to make, you know, complete every Hail Mary. Like, eventually, you have to, you know, something has to happen where you're stopped. It has not happened yet. And it's nothing short of amazing. This team finding ways to win. They need a win. They get one. The confidence that they have is infectious. You listen to Stafford and, he's pretty clear about it. Now, he's always been a confident guy and he should be. He says plain and simple. When I took off with the ball, I was getting in the end zone. And it's exactly what he did. Bouncing off guys, running over even his own teammates, doing what had to be done to get this win. It's amazing. And I know there's guys with better stats. There's teams with better records. And I am biased, but I have a hard time picking anyone aside from Matthew Stafford as my league MVP. I really do. You can look at so many scenarios and things that are benefiting other teams. Let's name them off. Okay. Ezekiel Elliott is a candidate for MVP. He's having a phenomenal year, but we already know what that offensive line is. We just saw what DeMarco Murray did with it 2 years previous, taking nothing away from Zeke because he is a special talent. But I do feel like you could plug in Alfred Morris, who is their backup, or like for me, MVP is like almost, how baseball has WAR, wins above replacement. I feel like you could plug someone in that Dallas system and still have 1,000-yard running back, still have a very effective rushing attack. Tom Brady is Tom Brady. Okay. He's amazing. The team is amazing, but that team and that coach is so amazing that yes, they can win 3 in a row without Tom Brady in impressive fashion. Even the years where, singular where he got hurt, Matt Castle, they did win. I believe it was 10 or 11 games. I'm taking nothing away from Brady because he is amazing, but the talent around him and specifically Bill Belichick, the coaching is so supreme, so superior that it's a combination of things that makes everyone valuable. Now, Aaron Rodgers is a strong consideration because I do feel like that defense is struggling and the offense, they are missing a lot. But I think a lot ties into what happens with this season. They could very well be outside of the playoff picture altogether, as could we. And I do realize that I'm not ignorant to the fact. Matt Ryan, that team just, they look good and they're starting to kind of falter. They go back and forth, and he does have that luxury of that Julio Jones guy who is pretty decent. Although they did put up some good points, even with Julio injured this past Sunday. And now Derek Carr, all these guys are candidates. I'm just saying, to me, Stafford is a little bit better. Carr does have the luxury of a Dallas Cowboy light offensive line. All right. Dallas by far number 1 best offensive line, but a strong number 2. I don't think there's someone even close at number 3 are the Oakland Raiders. I just look at Stafford, what he has and what he's dealing with. No running game for most of the year. Defense has been better, but they were up and down. He's putting things together. He's finding ways to win. Some of these throws at the end of games, he's literally single-handedly beating teams. And I hate to say that because technically he's not. All right. Football there's nothing single-handed when it comes to football. Okay. You need help. It is the most selfless game, in my opinion. One guy really just can't dominate like that. But as much as a single-handed situation as you can get, some of these throws, think about the throw to Andre Roberts against Minnesota. Think about the throw to Eric Ebron, even in that Tennessee game. It was really a good catch by Ebron, but you get my point. This guy has been beating teams in the most single-handed fashion that you could possibly have in the NFL. So when we're talking about awards, I have a tough time putting anybody above our guy number 9. All right, guys, when we come back, we're about to do it. We're about to go knee deep into all of these scenarios. We're about to look at the schedules of like 10 NFC teams. I'm not going to get into every minute detail of what this team has to do, but it's time to scoreboard watch. It's time to have that, patented Private Detroit rooting guide. Let's look at the scope. Let's look at the NFC North. Let's look at the whole NFC. Who's playing who? A rough idea of what has to be done. These last 3 games, this is exciting times, and the Lions are in the thick of it. So stay tuned as we break down and look at the rest of the NFC slate as the Lions look for a lot, man. It could be anywhere from out of the playoffs to home field advantage throughout. Super Bowl. The Super Bowl has to go through the Lions to get to the Super Bowl. This is the potential. That's a lot in 3 games to go from not in the playoffs to potentially having the number 1 seed, the road to the Super Bowl, have to go through Ford Field. So stay right there. Stay tuned as we'll break it down here on the Hindsight 20 podcast. Jerry Mallory here for the Hindsight 20 podcast. Listen, you want your ad to be placed here, up and coming, growing, established podcast, or even be a part of this network as a whole? Same deal, up and coming, growing yet established podcast network. Send me an email, hindsight20podcast@gmail.com, and we'll make it happen. All right, we're back on the Hindsight 20. I want to thank you for sticking around for this last half, this last third, however you want to view it, of the show. The Lions are at 9-4, and the slate of the NFC is completely up in the air. You know, at this point, only thing we know is that the Dallas Cowboys are in the playoffs. Literally, the other 5 playoff teams, it could be like about 10 teams, all right? There's so much going on. And so what I wanted to do is, have you guys get a better grasp of who might be in, who might be out. It's all Lions centric. It's what the Lions have to do. It's what we need to happen for our beloved Detroit Lions to get in the playoffs, win the division, or heck, even get a first round bye or home field throughout the entire NFC. And that would just be awesome. Let's first take a look at the standings. Now, as we have it, you've got in the NFC East, Cowboys are atop things. They're at 11-2. New York Giants, they've got a shot. They're 9-4. And remember, they own the tiebreaker over Dallas by sweeping them. The only 2 losses that the Cowboys have, are against the New York Giants. And you got the Redskins at 7-5. They're in the mix more so for the wild card. And I'm just mentioning teams that have a shot that can potentially do anything. Now, next up is, your NFC West. Seahawks are atop at 8-4-1. Cardinals with a small outside chance. I don't think they're quite eliminated yet at 5-7-1. You've got the NFC South. You got 2 teams at 8-5, Falcons and Buccaneers. It's about to get interesting. We got to wait and see what happens with them. And then, the NFC North, you've got our beloved Lions at 9-4. And then the Vikings and Packers both at 7-6 right now. The Vikings would be ahead of the Packers by way of tiebreaker. They've got 1 game in the bag, 1 game to go. And the Vikings won that first game there, and it was in Minnesota. So keep in mind their next game will be at Green Bay. So let's take care of business first. All right. The first thing you got to look at is this very division, because if you win a division, no matter where you're seated, 1 through 3, you at least have 1 playoff game at home. It's important. Okay. Having 2011, 2004 playoff banners, it's pathetic. Okay. But a nice little division banner, which this stat just blew my mind yesterday when they said, they showed the graphic, and I'm like, okay, yeah, all the teams have won the division title except for the Lions in the NFC. I knew that. Every team since the last time the Lions won the division in 1993, every NFC team has won their division 3 times. Okay. I just could not believe that. I could accept once, twice is even shaky. Every team has won their division. Okay. At least 3 times in the NFC since the Lions last won in 1993. Man, we better win this thing. I don't care what Stafford's finger situation is. We better win this thing. And I'm not talking too much about Stafford's finger this episode because I'm very worried about it, but we don't know yet. And I don't want to go there because we don't know all the details. We don't know all the answers. So speculating and trying to, I thought about, hey, I'm going to try to grip a football and see how it works and say it on the podcast. We don't know yet. We've got to wait and see how that thing is going to pan out. And I just dropped the mic. It wasn't a drop the mic moment like I said something cool. I just physically, in a clumsy fashion, dropped the mic. Anyways, we've got to win this division, okay? So what needs to be done? And by the way, I'm speaking to you, telling you all these things. You're listening to it. PrivateDetroit.com, my buddies, Jeremy Reisman and company, have a wonderful article just completely breaking down every tiebreaker scenario. So you can go there if you want to read it as well. I'm not going to get that much in depth. So it's simple. If we win out, that's the easiest way to get in. We're in. Now, another option is, if we get a loss from Green Bay and a win from us, we'd be ahead of them no matter what. All right. No matter how it goes down, because we'll be at 10 at the least, and they'll be at best at 9. 1 loss or tie by Minnesota, and they can't pass us no matter what. And so, even if we lose these next 2 games, but then we beat the Packers, again, we would win the whole thing. So 1 win or 1 loss from Minnesota or a tie from Minnesota, and that's it. they cannot catch us. It's nothing that they can do. So, we're definitely rooting for that. Then Green Bay has to lose a game and us win a game for us to defeat them. So it's a lot going on, but it can be done. In terms of, first round bye, at this point, we are ahead of Seattle and we are 2 games behind the Dallas Cowboys. Now the Cowboys lose one more game, and then not, against us, if they lose next week or if they lose week 17 and then we beat them, we're right in that thick of things. To get the number 1 seed, that's less likely. It would probably take us winning out, which, probably won't happen. Or it would take Dallas losing out and us, winning 2 out of 3 to get to 11-5. And then, one of those wins would have to be against Dallas, but them losing out kind of speaks for itself. So it's a lot going on. All right. Right now, if you're talking about wild card, that game against the Giants is huge. Both of us are 9-4. So tiebreaker implications next week. If we don't get the division, that's a big game. You were kind of rooting for the Cowboys to win that game yesterday because it helps us. Like if we don't, win that division, you just want to get in. Don't get too greedy thinking about the number 1 seed because it's kind of far-fetched. You better make sure you get in the playoffs. So next week is huge because it's a game and a half for either team and only 2 games left. So whoever wins that matchup will have a really good shot, a likelihood of just being a better seed, being a higher ranked NFC team between the two of them as the season ends. So very big game against the Giants next week. It's the one you want to win. Now, if you're picking one win out of anything, it's the last week against Green Bay because, as I said, that gets you in. Tampa Bay and us, if we're struggling with them, if we're struggling with the Falcons, there's a lot of tiebreakers and scenarios, strength of victory, games against common opponents and things we have to get into because we don't play either one of those teams this year. And so, it gets really murky and crazy. Let's look at the slate of these 3 teams. And I'll tell you briefly kind of, who you want to win or lose depending on your scenarios before we get out of here. So we're starting off with the Green Bay Packers because at this point, they're probably our biggest threat. They're the team that can have the tiebreaker over us in the division, and they're hot right now. So they are at Chicago, they are at home versus the Vikings, and then they are at the Detroit Lions. If they want it, man, they got to win out. They got to want it bad. I don't know if it's possible for them. Obviously, you want the Bears to somehow find a way to get that victory. Now versus Minnesota, you want Minnesota to win that game. You do. But if Minnesota loses, it's not the worst in the world because they would completely be eliminated from contention versus us. But like I said, I'm more worried about the Packers. So, you just hope they lose one of these 2 games. If not, you have the luxury. And this is beautiful because just a few years ago, 2014, the division was decided when or you're out of the division race. It was Packers versus Lions, but it was at Lambeau. So this time it'll be at Ford Field. That makes all the world of difference. And, you gotta love our chances at home. I don't care how hot, your Green Bay Packers are. I like our chances. Now, you've got Minnesota. They're playing the Colts. The Colts are, still in the race, still trying to, scratch and claw for, their own division, what a sorry division it is. So they have a chance. They're at the Packers and they're versus the Bears. So, pretty much, you want them to lose against the Bears. You want them to kind of beat the Packers, as we mentioned. And of course, AFC versus NFC, always go for AFC versus NFC. That's kind of like the most simple situation. I always do that. Even early in the year, I'm like, okay, AFC team versus NFC, always go for the AFC team. Let's move on to, let's say, Atlanta Falcons. This is a team that, we may be jockeying for a position with. If we win the division, it may be a team the way they're faltering. And if we falter, we may be, going up against them in terms of wild card. So they're playing 3 teams that will not make the playoffs. You just hope that one of them are victorious. They are at home against the 49ers. They're playing at the Panthers, and then they're playing the Saints. So those last 2 are against NFC South rivals. And the Panthers game is the one you really look at because it's a road game and they're playing for pride and all that. And you don't want to lose to a division guy. But in terms of the Atlanta Falcons, you hope they lose all of their games because they're facing 3 teams that don't really have playoff significance. They are not in our way at all. They don't have a shot at making the playoffs. So you just want them to win. You want them to win all 3 of those teams. You got to be 49ers fans. You got to be New Orleans Saints fans and you got to beat Carolina Panthers fans, because Atlanta is the team that could, overtake us in a lot of different scenarios, whether it be seeding or the wild card spot. Next up is Tampa Bay. They're scorching hot. They're facing the Cowboys. Listen, I'm just at the point where, number one, I don't believe in the Cowboys. I honestly feel like whoever wins that first round matchup and they have to face the Cowboys in Dallas, for some reason, and I think it's because they're rookies. That's a big thing. They're relying so heavily on rookies. I think whoever Dallas faces, their first matchup with that first round bye they have, I think they lose. I do. If they're facing Seattle or they're facing Green Bay, I honestly think that they lose. So that being said, I want them to win. I want them to beat Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay's hot. They're streaking. They have a chance of overtaking us. So a loss would really help us in that regard. And like I said, I think the Cowboys are going to lose their first round matchup, which means if we get the 2 seed, the Super Bowl has to go through Ford Field anyway. So, and then getting that number 1 seed is just kind of far-fetched at this point. We've got to win too much. They've got to lose just way too much. Unfortunately, I think the Cowboys will win this game. Not unfortunately, fortunately, I think they will win this game. They're coming off a tough loss. They'll be at home. They've looked really good at home. And, they're going to have to do something to rebound. And I think they will. So you want them to win that game. And we're talking about Tampa Bay versus the Dallas Cowboys. So I've been a Cowboy fan just too many times this year, rooting for them against Green Bay, rooting for them against, Minnesota. It sickens me because I hate the Cowboys, but, I love the Lions so much. You do what you got to do. So next, Tampa Bay plays the Saints and the Panthers. Again, Saints and Panthers have no relevance. You root for the Saints and the Panthers. So looking at Tampa Bay's schedule, you want them to lose every game possible. Really, it helps us in so many different ways. Now, moving on to your Seattle Seahawks, that little tie is I don't like ties, man. They're so weird and they get in the way of, getting some relevance in terms of, where you're at. This is a team we just overtook. We just overtaken. I don't know. I'm saying it wrong, probably. We just took them down in terms of number 2 seed. They've got the Rams. They've got the Cardinals. They've got the 49ers. It's simple. Again, these 3 teams, I think Cardinals have an outside shot, but you're just rooting for the Rams, the Cardinals, and the 49ers to win any of those games, to win all of those games. We want Seattle to lose out. And last, we'll look at the Dallas Cowboys. Now, again, we do have a shot at getting the number 1 seed. I don't really think it's possible, but you never know. They've got the Buccaneers. Again, you root for the Buccaneers to lose. So just cheer for the Cowboys one more week. It helps us in the big picture. They're playing the Lions. Don't have to say anything about that. We know who we want to win. Then they're at the Eagles. Yeah, sure. We'll say we want them to lose at the Eagles. That will put them at, as far as our rooting guide, that will put them at 12-4. And, if we won out and they were at 12-4, that means we would actually be better than them because we would also be 12-4, but we would own the tiebreaker. So they could win a couple of games. Actually, no, they would be at 13-3. I apologize. Yeah, we wouldn't be able to catch them. Because in terms of our rooting guide, the only team I want them to lose is against us. That's fine, man. Go 13-3, have a ball. I don't care. I think you're going to lose in the first round anyway. And that, if we got all crazy and home field was an issue and we were number 2, we would still have home field because I just have a sneaky feeling they're going to get knocked out in their first playoff game. All right, guys. So the tiebreakers, I know they're weird. You can go to NFL.com for scenarios. The main thing is this: Lions, keep winning games. That's the easiest thing because they control their own destiny. They want teams to lose, but they're not depending on teams to lose just for them to get in. If we win, we go 12-4, we win the division. It's that simple. Just beating Green Bay gets us the division. If we're getting greedy and we're talking about seeding, at this point, win out, and at the very least, you are a 2 seed. And that's very, very respectable. You're going to get at least 1 game at Ford Field, maybe even 2. You got to love it. All right, guys, that's it for today's show. I know I'm a little under the weather. You can probably hear it. The voice isn't 100%, but I 100% love doing this show. 100% love talking about the Lions and chatting with you all. So until next Monday, where the playoff picture will be a lot clearer, we could potentially be talking about the NFC North champion Detroit Lions. That's amazing. Until then, this has been Jerry Mallory. Follow me on Twitter at Jerry Mallory NFL, and I'm out.
I fell asleep amid the flowers for a couple of hours on a beautiful day.